awakening, enlightenment, and so on. But then people want to know, well, that all sounds wonderful, but how do I get there? You know? And they say, well, you're already there. It's like, well, that's true, but sometimes we need pointers to help us understand how we can actually have a direct experience of being there. You know, a conscious knowing that we're there and experiencing that we're there. I often compare it to if you had in the palm of your hand a beautiful diamond like the Hope Diamond, some beautiful flawless gem with multi-facets and beautiful, all the things. I don't remember all the things that my one cousin just got her diamond ring, and they're talking about, what were they talking about? Clarity and cut, and there's like 4 things or something it's supposed to have. And I remember her talking to this other girl about it, and I was like, that's interesting. So they have all these kind of things that describe a beautiful diamond. So if you had a diamond like that in the palm of your hand, you wouldn't need to think about going somewhere else to get one, would you? You wouldn't need to acquire a diamond from outside yourself because you already got it in the palm of your hand. But imagine if it was covered with caked up gooky mud and cow dung, you know? You'd have the most beautiful diamond ever in the palm of your hand, but you wouldn't really be able to appreciate it because it's all obscured, you know, it's covered up. So it's true that you don't need to acquire it because you've already got it, but you do need to clear it off in order to appreciate the cut and the clarity and the beauty of the diamond. You know, and that's what spiritual practice is really. It's clearing off all the obscurations that cover over your true nature. That's what all spiritual practice can be boiled down to. So, rather than just talk about this, rather than just talk about the embrace of Jesus and Buddha, even in my heart, I want to invite you to experience the embrace of Jesus and Buddha in your own heart, because it's there. You know, the energy, the consciousness that the Christ and the Buddha represent is already within you. That chant that we chanted at the beginning, you know, homage to that one, the Lord, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. You were chanting that to yourself, really, ultimately. You were chanting that to that true nature that's within you. So I really want to experientially point you toward that and invite you into that space in your heart. So let's just start doing that, because if I just talk all day, it's not going to do you much good. So if you would like, just sit kind of in a comfortable position with your feet on the floor or your knees on the floor if you're sitting cross-legged. And just close your eyes gently. And we're going to have a little guided meditation to point you toward that very presence that the Jesus, the Christ, and the Buddha represent. It's already within you. So just sit quietly and be aware of the fact that you're breathing in and breathing out. The breath is coming in, and when it comes in, the chest rises because the lungs are filling up with air. And when it goes out, the chest falls. So be aware of the sensations of breath coming in at your nostrils, filling up your lungs. Your chest is rising on the in-breath, and it's dropping on the out-breath. And just be aware of that experience of breathing. And notice that the breath is simply breathing itself. You don't have to make yourself breathe. Breathing is happening, and you are witnessing the breath coming in and going out. You're also experiencing sound arising, a plane overhead in the distance. So hearing is also happening. You're sitting, breathing, hearing the plane in the distance, a little twittering of the birds in the trees outside, the sound of my voice, the sound of bodies in a room, slightly fidgeting, maybe other people's breath or your own breath going in and out. There's an experience of sound arising. There's also, if you notice, an experience of sensation in the body, the rising and falling of the chest, the feeling of clothes upon your body, the pressure of sitting on your backside in a chair or on the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, you can feel the back of the chair touching your back. You can feel your hands in your lap. Just be aware of all of that. Be aware of sitting, breathing, hearing, sensing. All the sensations that you're feeling in your body. Just be present to all of that. Be aware of all of that. Distant sounds of animals. The interesting hum of the sound of silence in the room. Just be present to the experience of breathing, sitting, hearing, feeling. Be present to it all. It all arises in a vast stillness. And it all recedes back into that stillness. Now I want you to simply shift your focus ever so slightly. And rather than noticing so much the experience of breathing, of sitting, of listening, of sensing sensations in the body, shift your focus to notice that there's something that's aware of all those things. There's a nameless stillness that's present to whatever arises, to whatever ceases. It's the stillness between each word I speak. The words arise out of the stillness and they disappear back into the stillness. Sensations arise in the stillness and recede back into it. Breathing arises and ceases, comes in and goes out in the stillness. Focus now on the stillness in which all these objects appear and disappear. You are the stillness which contains them all. All all the objects of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching arise in stillness. The stillness is here before they arise. The stillness is present as they are arising. And when they cease, the stillness remains silent, vast, still. Rest as that. What is that stillness? What is that silence, that space in which everything arises and ceases? What is that? Investigate it. Rest as that. You are that silent, still point around which everything that appears and disappears revolves. Just allow yourself to center in to that stillness, to rest as that stillness, to look at all the arising and ceasing from that place of stillness. Let that be your center. Let that be your focus. It's the one unchanging reality in which everything appears and disappears. Rest as that. So that's just a little pointer, a little glimpse, a little taste of this stillness, this peace, this presence that's really at the heart of everything. It's within you. You know, it's what the Buddha and the Christ represent. It really is the embrace of the Buddha and the Christ within you. And it's important for you to realize that that reality is not somewhere else. It's not outside of you. Well, it's not really located anywhere. So you could say, it is outside you, but it's also within you. It kind of breaks down the division between inside and outside. So when you come into the hall, you can bow to the Buddha, to the statue of the Buddha, which represents the person of the Buddha, but to know that that represents your own essence. So you're bowing to yourself in a certain sense. You're recognizing that reality in yourself. It's the movement from intimacy to identification, and it's the movement of the spiritual journey, really. It's where the spiritual journey takes us. It's a journey inward. There's a line in the Psalms, which I remember from an old song I sang back in my charismatic days. And it's taken from the Psalms. And it says, "The highway to your city runs through my heart." I remember the song, it went like this. It said, "How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My heart longs and faints for your courts. And my heart and my soul sing for joy to the living God. One day in your presence is far better to me than gold, or living my whole life somewhere else. And I would rather be a gatekeeper in your house than to take my fate upon myself. For you are my song, you're my shield. You're my lover from the start, and the highway to your city runs through my heart." So that's that remnant of duality for the sake of devotion. And recognizing that this beloved, this Christ, this Buddha, whatever symbol you use, the journey to that is an inner journey, not an outer journey. It might express itself in different ways outwardly. You might end up going to Thailand. You might go to Tibet. You might go to Ireland. But the real journey is an inner journey, no matter where we go outwardly. The real journey is always interior. You know, and all the wisdom and compassion and understanding and enlightenment that we're looking for, we will ultimately find in our own hearts, not anywhere else. So I'd like to do another little experiment with you. And this little guided meditation is taken from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition of Guru Yoga. Guru Yoga is a spiritual practice where you engage with your root guru. You kind of radiate that. You sort of manifest that from your own heart. And then you engage that sacred person. And then you absorb that back into your own heart, with the hope that you realize the presence, that the essence of that root guru is you. That it's really mirroring back to you your true nature, your true self. And that's what the images like the Christ and the Buddha do for us, each in their own way. I was raised, like I say, a little Irish-American Catholic boy, feeling this devotion to Jesus. But for some reason, I needed the image of the Buddha as well. And I think that the journey of awakening goes through different phases, just like a real physical journey goes through different phases. And there's a phase of awakening up and out of our merely human identity. We start out in life really pretty convinced that who we are is based on a body, a mind, various relationships, roles, functions that body, mind, personality engages in the world. And we think that's who we are. I remember when I first left the monastery, I had to get a job. I ended up becoming a marketing director for a home health agency for a while, which was fine. It was good for me for a year or so. And then the teaching thing started happening, and it seemed like it's time to let go of that and go more into teaching. But I remember going for the interview with the guy to get that job, and this kind of business guy, business owner of this home health agency, sort of a kind of, business executive type guy in a suit and tie and in his office. And he leans back. He was real casual. He smoked cigars a lot. This real casual guy. He leans back in his chair and puts his feet up on his, desk. Crosses his feet. And he looks at me and he goes, "Okay, well, who is Francis Bennett?" And I thought, boy, did he just ask a loaded question. I wonder if I should give him a little lecture on no self or something. I decided against that. It's probably why I got the job. But we think we know who we are, don't we? We think we know. We think that, I'm this person, this name, this form, this age, this gender, this relationship or that relationship, this job, this role, this function. I was born this year, this particular year. I went to this particular school. I married this particular person, had children, then divorced the person, then married someone else, then did this, then did that. And we think, okay, that's who I am. It's easy, Or at cocktail parties. Do you ever go to cocktail parties? Anybody? I never really did before I left the monastery. Because I entered seminary at 18, and then I entered a monastery at 22. So cocktail parties weren't really a big part of my life before the age of 22. And in the monastery, there were very few cocktail parties, I discovered. They were very few and far between. But after I left, I got invited to a few, what they called cocktail parties. And I learned very quickly that the subject of conversation at cocktail parties is, "Oh, hi, how are you? What's your name? What do you do?" That's what people talk about, what your name is and what you do. As if that's who you are. You're that name and you're what you do. And people sort of sum you up that way. But is that really who we are? Or you have friends. I have a lot of friends now that have kids, friends that are more or less my age, and they have kids that are like around, 19, 20, 21, in their early 20s. So they're like going into college and things like that and doing that kind of stuff. Some of them are getting married already and everything. And every now and then one of them will say, "Oh, Johnny is off finding himself. He's off to find himself. He's gone to India for a year." That's very popular. I don't know if it's popular here, but in the U.S., it's very popular for kids to take a year before they start college, and they just go travel, like in Europe or something. India, if they're so inclined. And so we go on this search for ourselves, which seems kind of funny, doesn't it? I'm going to search for myself. It's like, well, you don't have far to go. Just look inside. But that's what days like this are about. They're about finding who we really are, discovering, who am I really? That perennial question, who am I? That can arise in our heart and start to kind of dominate our consciousness. But there's not really a logical, kind of definitive, defining kind of answer to that, is there? The Buddha and Jesus, the Christ, are kind of symbols of the true self. They're pointing to something. And we kind of know what it is, and yet we can't really describe it, can we? The Buddha is a very interesting teacher because he didn't feel a need to describe that very much. He just called it the deathless, or such other phrases that were not very satisfying to the intellect or to the need to define something. But the reason he didn't define it was because he knew that the important thing was to not get a definition of it, but to be that, to awaken to that, to know that directly in our own direct experience. And that's what days like this are about. They're about just an investigation into that. And that little guided meditation I just led you in is looking at that. That's what real self-investigation is about. It's about directly taking a look at that which in you that knows, that's present to breathing, that's present to sensations, to sound, to sights. It's listening to my voice right now. What is that? It's nameless. It doesn't really have your name. It's not confined to your form. It fills all sentient beings. It's that which knows, that which hears, that which is looking at me through your eyes, that which is looking at you through my eyes. What is that? Who is that? There's no answer to that question. It's kind of a rhetorical question that's pointing to that. That's encouraging you to take a look at that. To just be aware of that. And I think all spiritual practices is a checking in, a touching in to that reality, that consciousness, that presence that's present to whatever comes, whatever goes. So spiritual practice is an intentional turning toward that. And spiritual realization is the dawning sense that that's always here and now, and always has been, and always will be present. And that's what days like this are all about. Coming to take a look at that. And as I say, I think it's important to really take an existential, experiential look at that. not just hear my words about it and think about it and consider it and read books on it and go to satsangs and hear talks on it. But to actually take a look at it inside ourselves and outside ourselves. So I want to do another little experiment. And this is a kind of imaginative one, so it's based on the Tibetan practice of guru yoga. So those of you with good imaginations, this is the practice for you. Those of you with poor imaginations, this is a challenging practice for you, but you may be surprised how imaginative you actually are. And when I ask you to imagine this or that or the other thing, just do the best you can. You might not have some vivid image of it, but just kind of picture it in your mind as best you can, as clearly as you can, and see what it brings up in your heart. So just close your eyes. This is, by the way, a dumbed-down version of Guru Yoga, which all my guided meditations are dumbed-down versions of various things. Which makes it, I think, a little more accessible and simple. The actual kind of technical Guru Yoga has a lot more sort of complicated things in it, but I don't think it's really the essence of it, so I want to bring this down to its essence. So close your eyes and be aware again of your breath. Just center yourself in the breath as an anchor that brings you into the present moment where breathing is happening. Where you're breathing in and you're breathing out. Imagine the breath breathing in and touching your heart and stirring your heart. And then imagine breathing out from your heart center. Breathing in, allowing your heart to stir. And breathing out from your heart. Now imagine that there is a nice, warm, golden light permeating your heart and suffusing your heart, radiating from your heart. You feel the warmth of that light. A soft golden glow surrounding your heart. Breathe into that warm light in your heart and breathe out from that. Feel the peace of that warmth, that sense of presence in your heart, your heart center. Now imagine that the golden light that surrounds and permeates your heart begins to expand before you. It starts to expand into a little orbit that surrounds you of golden light, golden warm light in front of you, around you, and behind you, and above you. You're radiating this golden light. And as you gaze in front of you, you can see the golden light shimmering. It begins to take form. You begin to see a golden temple begins to form in the golden light. Just imagine this beautiful temple forming before you in golden light in the middle of a deep, silent, vast forest. Sanctuary. The sacred silence just fills your soul as you stand before this golden temple and look at the 4 steps that lead to the golden doors of the temple. And you approach the temple with devotion and awe, aware of the sacred presence that dwells within the temple. You begin to walk up the 4 steps, and you place your hand on the golden door, and you open it, and you walk into the temple shrine room, which is all gold. Golden rafters, golden walls, golden floor. And you begin to approach the front of the shrine room, and you notice that there are 2 golden thrones in the front. And sitting on one side, on the left side, is the figure of the Christ. Gentle, lovely, compassionate, kind, in a white robe, gazing at you with kindness and compassion and love. And on the right, in the other golden throne, is the figure of the Buddha in golden robes, with his gentle Buddhic smile on his lips, gazing at you with large, dark eyes, gazing at you with compassion and wisdom and kindness. Both of them together are there, like brothers, like twin flames. And you feel a sense of gratefulness and awe and devotion toward the Buddha and the Christ in this golden temple. You just for a while gaze into their eyes as they look back at you. This presence looking through their eyes at you, taking you in with absolute unconditional love and openness and benevolence. And imagine the feeling of inspiration you feel gazing at these sacred figures, feeling so grateful to be here with them, to be in their presence. You're grateful for this opportunity. Just stand there in silence for a few moments, aware of their sacred presence, aware of the gratefulness and peace in your heart that you feel for being with them. It is good to be here in this holy place with these sacred persons. And suddenly you remember a difficulty in your life, a person, a situation, an experience that you have had questions about, that you have been confused about, that's currently in your life situation, that you feel troubled about in some way. It's been a burning question for you. And you suddenly remember that question. And you think, oh, I have this great opportunity to bring my problem, to bring my question to these wise and compassionate beings that sit before me, gazing at me with love and unconditional openness and wisdom and compassion. And so you bring your question before Jesus and the Buddha. You lay it out to them in a very simple way, just by asking them the question, what should I do with X? How should I respond to this person, this situation, this experience? You lay it out to them, and then you stand in silence, waiting for their answer. First you look to the Buddha, and you ask him for an answer. And he speaks to you in very simple words, maybe just one word, maybe a few words, just a very simple sentence in answer to your question. Just take in his answer, his wise, compassionate answer. Just repeat his answer to yourself so that you'll remember it. And feel this deep sense of gratefulness for the wisdom, compassion, and loving kindness of his answer. And now you look to the Christ, to Jesus, and you ask him the same question and see what his answer is. Their answers may be slightly different, or they may be very much the same. You want the opinion of both of them. So you take in the answer that Jesus gives you. It may be interesting how it complements the answer of the Buddha. Feel a sense of deep gratefulness that you had this opportunity to ask these two beings this question that's been bothering you. And in that grateful spirit, you back away from them toward the door. And as you get closer to the door, you turn and leave with a grateful heart for having spent time in the presence of these two beings. You go back down the 4 steps and you stand in front of the temple, just taking in its loveliness, its beauty. The little golden temple, the golden door. And it begins to be suffused in that same golden light out of which it arose. Becomes more and more dim as it blends into the golden light and becomes all light. And then the light begins to return into your heart. It recedes back into your heart, which is suffused with this golden glow of warmth and love. The golden temple arose out of your own heart, and it returned back into your own heart. The golden temple, with Jesus and Buddha dwelling within it, lives within you. You can go there whenever you like. You can consult them whenever you wish. Whenever a problem or difficulty presents itself to you and you feel confused, you can look to them. You can visit the golden temple where they live, and you can ask them for their help. And in great mercy and kindness, they will give you the help you need. Just bask a little bit in the warmth of your heart, your radiant heart. It's eyes glowing in this golden light. So that's a kind of simplified version of Guru Yoga with Jesus and Buddha. And you can kind of get the sense of it, that it's pointing to the fact that these energies, these symbols, they're really within you, you know. You manifest them in your life. They're within your own heart, and you can access them if you need to. And eventually you do come to see that they're not outside of you at all. You know, that they're very, very close. That they're very accessible. And yet I think that sometimes when we imagine something like that, it can be really helpful. It can get us in touch with the dimension of wisdom and compassion within us that often we are convinced we lack, you know. And because of our insecurity about that, we have trouble contacting it. But if we picture it in these beings that we greatly admire and sort of embody for us that wisdom, that compassion, that understanding, sometimes we can get in touch with something that normally we might not. And it's interesting, I've done that a few times now in different retreats and things, and it's very interesting, the answers people report. Sometimes they're very surprised by the answers they get. So we have a few minutes left. We have just about 5 minutes to dissolve. But maybe a few people might feel comfortable enough to just share if they felt something was really kind of interesting that they got an answer for. Just leave it open for a little bit to see if anybody has anything to share about that. I noticed something about the Irish crowds. They're very slow to answer a question, but once they get started, watch out, because it'll go then for an hour. So don't be shy.
How would you know that the answer you're getting is authentic?
Is what?
Authentic.
Authentic? How would you know it's not? I guess you don't know. But I think that just like the symbols themselves, there's something in us that I think resonates with things, you know. When we hear a teaching, sometimes it can maybe be given or delivered in some very eloquent, erudite way, and there's something about it that just doesn't ring true to us, or there's something about it that just doesn't feel quite clear or quite right. And then another teaching or another teacher may be very, very simple, you know, something very basic, you know, love other people, feed people, be good, you know, something like that, something that seems almost prosaic, and yet it can just like speak directly to us. So I would say the answer you get, if it's like that kind of answer, that it just kind of goes directly to the heart of the situation, kind of leaves you a little speechless, or kind of leaves you kind of curious and wondering, or feeling like, wow, I didn't expect that answer, or that might be a sign that there's something that's welling up from somewhere deep within you. Does that make some sense? Yeah.